You don't know me. I don't know you. You have no reason to trust me. This is what we can talk about today. Or if you want, you can just pepper me with questions, and I hope that over time I can answer them.
Let's get this straight. This is where people need to understand the power of getting connected with people you don't know.
Who's your lawyer? Oh, it's so-and-so at this place. Great. Reach out to them. Hey, we just did a deal together. Love to go for lunch. Let's connect, right? And since that first connection, at least once a month, I've gone for a coffee or a lunch or a beer, whatever that might be, with that person. Who's your mortgage broker? This person. Great. I'm going to reach out to them. And then it was funny because the more I met non-immediate connection people, I started getting more people in my circle going, oh, I didn't even know you were doing this. Oh, we've been thinking about selling. We saw you on social or whatever that might be. And then it just kind of like really organically grew rather than me being like, I'm in the industry. You should sell or buy with me. And, let's do it right now.
You're listening to the number one real estate podcast in the world, where we talk with real estate professionals all across North America about their wins, losses, lessons, stories, help you win in your local market today. My name is Cody from Sheridan Street. I am joined with Vikram Deol of the Real Estate Sales Academy. Vikram, my man, what is the best thing over the last week that's happened in your business and in your life? I want to know now.
I put up a sign. So I created a vision board with our team about a month ago, and so I can see the vision board and I can see like the most important parts of what I enjoy. And then I put up a sign that says, never negotiate with your inner bitch. If you negotiate with your inner bitch and choose easy over difficult, you will literally kill the best and let the bitch run your life. You'll literally kill the beast and let the bitch run your life. So I put that up like literally right where I walk into my office at. So I see it when I sit down, I see it all day. And, it's actually been, that little reminder has been really good because it's forced me to get back into prospecting.
Yeah.
And, I'll just be square with you. I hate prospecting as much as everybody else, but also like last night when we were talking, when somebody who I know I can help chooses not to work with me, I feel so bad because it's kind of like a good real estate agent that doesn't get the listing and then they list with somebody that sucks. And you're like, oh my God, if I would have been better, if I would have done better, if I would have been more professional, if I wouldn't have negotiated with my inner, and practiced and woke up earlier and did the things I needed to do, that person would have been using us and they would have had probably a better result. And so I think that to me has been a big thing.
Yeah. I think what's been really cool watching you over the last couple of weeks. I was in Nashville with Sharon, and I'm like Vikram is locked in again. And that's exciting for me to watch you get locked in. I know that you recently lost an appointment setter, and that's kind of like, a couple appointments
and an assistant
and an assistant
and a marketing.
I know that you've lost a couple employees over the last little while. So it's kind of forced you back onto the phones, in towards actually until you get another appointments that are up and running in your business. But the fact that you're like, okay, I booked 5 appointments yesterday for myself. Like a lot of real estate agents out there, I think can take a lot of practical wisdom from that, where it's like sometimes things like I remember having a conversation with a past client a couple years ago, and we had launched their service and they're like, well, hey, we have we're not getting a crazy amount of appointments right away. She's like, what should I do? I'm like, yeah, we're setting appointments. We're not like we were doing, I think probably 3 to 4 a week. She's like, I need more than that. And I said to her, I'm like, well, pick up the phone and start dialing. It seems so simple, but advanced people, one of the best lines I heard Alex Hormozy say that I 100% agree with is advanced people never stop doing the basics.
Yep.
And it's like, if you really want to be an advanced person, you never stop doing the basics. Like I still respond to emails. I still do a lot of the basic things. There's things that I am.
You have a zero inbox policy, which is impressive. Yeah. I have a 16,000 inbox policy. That's
very honest with you.
Well, it's true, and it's one of the things that I'm excited to talk about with our guest today, because he said when you asked him in the green room, what's one of the things that he's really good at? He said, I'm really good at building those relationships. And like I listen to a lot of different people on real estate. Like I love real estate. Like I love selling real estate. I love the process of real estate. I didn't love being a real estate agent because I didn't love dealing with the clients, but I loved everything else about real estate. And I loved the processes that we built around selling real estate. And what we were really good at was taking that Zillow lead or taking that online lead and sitting down with those people and having a real conversation. And the industry is really weird because it's like, like I listen to like Mike Sherrard, or I listen to, like a bunch of different people. Right. And today I was listening to Mike Sherrard. He was talking about YouTube and he's talking about Loom videos. And, this is stuff that we, Tom Ferry talked about 10 years ago, but nobody still does it, right? Like create your personal brand. Instead of sending an email, send a Loom video. Instead of sending a Instagram post, send a video, send a voice memo, right? Like how do we personalize the game where we take these, for whatever reason, in every other industry in the world, a lead is like a human being, but in real estate, if you buy a lead, you're like the devil, which is really crazy. But every other industry, they understand that if they want to scale, they have to buy leads. But how do you take these cold people, right? They're not cold, but they're warm people, and convert them into a raving fan? And part of your process is humanization, right? Like you talk about humans over homes. It's a humanization process of that prospect, right? Of that human, from a number and just digits and ones and zeros in a database to an actual face. And when, like, it gives me chills. Like when we would send videos, I had just chills all over my body. We would send videos to people, bro, and response would be like, oh my God. And like one of the things that, one of the lines we used to use, it was not exactly like this, but it'd be like, hey, I don't know how many people send you videos, and I'm sorry to just get stuck in the crowd, or something like that. And they're like, nobody sends us videos. And you're like, oh, well, cool. Here's what I look like. And you can start the conversation, and those people become stickier than sticky. And if you do that enough times, you door knock enough, you buy enough leads, you convert, you nurture, there comes a point where you don't have to spend as much to have the same business. So yeah. I think we should, I don't know, man, I'm excited to jump in with our guest today.
Yeah. So Mike is actually a client of ours. We've been working fairly closely with Mike over the last couple of months. And Mike's from Ottawa, and, not too far from my old stomping grounds in Peterborough. I spent a lot of time in Ottawa over the last decade. Mike, welcome to the RE Agent Podcast. Why don't you give us a high-level 30-second overview on kind of like how you got into real estate and how you got here today?
I got to say before Mike says anything.
30 seconds. All right.
Before you say anything, if you guys are not watching this on YouTube, Mike's got like the flyest like polo shirt on right now. I was like, this guy's dressed for the.
I'm ready for the long weekend. We got
dressed for some
apples, palm trees, beach. We're ready to go.
It's like he's ready to go party.
Yeah.
That's real estate though, right? Yeah, I'm excited to be on with you guys in chat, and I guess like a 30-second, really quick one. To gear off between university in my second and third year, went overseas and played some rugby. My mom was just like, you have to come back, you have to finish your degrees, no one's going to employ you when you come back, all that. Lo and behold, and I'll admit that online to everyone, she was actually right. Very few people, at least in Ottawa, wanted someone with no professional experience, and life experience at the time didn't matter, right? So ended up getting into marketing and literally just like learning as I go and like trial by fire. And I was lucky enough to have a few friends that kind of believed in me, and they were realtors across Canada. So I was running their marketing, their advertising, and I'm watching their teams just like blow up over the years. A few years ago, had a daughter, stayed at home with her for like, cause that's time you're just never going to get back. And then when they went off to school full time, I'm like, sweet, I have my days now. What am I going to do? And all along I was doing the real estate course. And I'm like, I'm jumping in, both feet, got rid of a bunch of clients, but kept a couple who like really got tight with, just kind of helped them through, and then just been on this path since, which has been incredible.
I love the fact that you have the marketing background. So like when you came in and we connected, like we immediately connected that through the marketing stuff, and you understanding kind of the life cycle of the lead. But I want to chat really quickly about what we were chatting in the green room about building relationships in real estate. And one of the philosophies and ethos that I have to business that Vic mentioned earlier is humans over homes. Is this idea that like, if we could just humanize people and humanize the phone numbers that we have in our database, we have better conversations. Like, I'm curious to know, like, kind of like your philosophy around building relationships in real estate, what that looks like and how that can be effective. Like, is that a strategy, or is that something that like you just innately have?
Yeah, great question. And I'll kind of give you a story behind it, right? Like, when I first met my wife, she had a ton of like girlfriends. And then when I came into the picture, like all these little like bromances started popping up with their significant others. And my now wife was like, how do you do this? How do you just like inject yourself into people's lives in such a meaningful way? And I was like, I don't know, I'm just me, right? And I think like part of it is like, just put yourself out there, be who you are. Because if you try to be someone else, your story is going to get mixed up, right? At some point, you'll say something contradictory. So don't even bother with that, right? And I still remember, my very first listing, the person was like, how many houses have you sold? And most realtors right then and there kind of freeze up and they're like, I should say more than what I've actually done. I should say I've partnered. I need to seem, legit. And I was like, none. You're the first, but that comes with a ton of benefits. You get 100% of my attention. I will make sure that I knock it out of the park for you. They're like, okay, let's give it a go. And they only gave me 30 days on the listing agreement because they're like, you're new, we'll try it. And ended up really thankfully, because it was a pretty slow market, moved it. So, that was just one of those things. Like, I was just honest. I could have sat there and been like, oh, I'm with a team that does this and that. Like, no, man, I've done none.
So I got a question around honesty, and I'm a big proponent of it. And what we teach our clients is like, when you ask great questions and you really connect with that prospect, you don't really have to talk a lot about yourself. Like, a lot of times you get to the end of the presentation and the prospect's like, wait a minute, how long have you been in real estate for? Like, have you sold anything in my neighborhood? Like, they've already signed the agreement. They're like, I guess we should ask, like, do you even know like anything about our neighborhood? Like, you just had like this really good process and you took control from the beginning, and like, we just followed suit because it made sense. When you're like, why is our industry like, how do we help new agents that are listening to this realize, like, look, you don't have to be the top dog with your name on a billboard to still be successful, and you don't have to lie. Like, you don't have to fake it to make it. Just tell people where you're at and what you're willing to do. And like, why is our industry so full of ego? And I think the ego is what kills the relationships, because if your ego is so big, then why would you call the people that helped you in the past? Like, you don't need them.
Yeah. And I think my background is psychology. You said a really interesting word, and it was control, right? So when I've gone in to do any of the presentations I've had, they are in control. I'm asking them questions. They are answering them. That puts them in control, right? And one of the things that was interesting, I read Never Split the Difference by Chris Voss. Have you ever read that book? It's phenomenal, right? And I think everyone should read it. And it just comes down to like, even though your agenda there is to get them to buy or sell a house with you, right? Like that's no secret. How you go about doing that is totally different. You could sit there and go, me, this is what I do. I'll do this. Or you can sit there and go, what would you like out of this meeting, right? It gives them control, but the same outcome that I want.
All right.
Do you want to sell your house? Yes. Great. Why would you like to sell your house? All these reasons. Why is that important to you? How would you like to see things done? What would you like me to do? Right. And they pretty much do the presentation for me in a way, and they're in control.
It's so interesting. We were doing a training a couple of weeks ago, and I think you were on the training where we were talking about chunk up, chunk down, like really finding ways in order to make the questions easier through sorting questions, but just asking the question why. I listened to hundreds of live transfer calls. And it's funny because we actually use one of your calls as an example of a good call. This is what a good call sounds like.
Yeah.
You get the good call, but like we use your, because like exactly. But we use your example because you ask the question why. You dig deep, like you ask good questions. You want to actually get to know the prospect. Like let's talk specifically on the buyer side, because I think a lot of people right now, they struggle to understand how to even do a buyer consult or how to even do like what Sharon calls a coffee meeting. And the reason that they struggle to do that is because if you look at the pandemic agent was like, just go show homes. But now we're in a market right now that's requiring a lot of education in order to get people that are on the sidelines into potentially looking at homes. Like, it's like right now, there's no question in my mind. No one can debate with me. The people that are moving are the people that are they have to. It's either a relocation, it is because of a divorce, or it's because of a family event, like a downsizing. So understanding why is important, but there's also people that are on the sidelines with bad information that would move if they had the right information. So I'm curious to know what your buyer meeting consult process looks like.
Yeah, for sure. So when it comes to, the vast majority of leads that are coming in through Facebook advertising, Google, digital marketing. And that's because they're just more at scale. And my theory has always been, you can spend time or you can spend currency. I'm investing in the currency so I can spend more time with my clients or with my family, right? So when I get a live transfer, oftentimes like the ISA is like, hey, it's so-and-so talking with this person. And I guess the goal of that call is just to build a quick relationship that's meaningful enough that I can then ask them, hey, let's grab a cup of coffee before the coffee's done, and it's the script, right? And I literally
I've heard this script before,
yeah,
Mike.
but...
Wait, Mike, I've heard this script. Is this the why don't we?
And it's funny with that script, right? Like I like to think I'm fairly confident, and I could have written something. I've done copywriting for years, but I'm like, you know what? For it to be completely fair, I'm going to adopt the system, right? So like there's scripts for a reason, right? So, and it's funny so I booked one meeting, and it was with a 23-year-old girl from a conservative background, like growing up on a farm, saved a ton of money and wants to buy a condo. We went for a coffee. She's like, I'm going to bring my dad if that's okay. And I was like, yep, great. The dads are the ruiners of deals, but whatever, and we're sitting down, there's very obviously a hesitation between the two of them. And I just like pushed my coffee aside. I was like, listen, I am a stranger in the big picture here. I'm a total stranger. You don't know me. I don't know you. You have no reason to trust me. This is what we can talk about today. Or if you want, you can just pepper me with questions, and I hope that over time I can answer them. And she was asking really great questions about, in the market and all that. And like, realistically, when you're like, what's the market doing? There's a million different things it does on day to day. And then the dad goes, well, it's all good that you know your stats, but are there any bad signs that you're looking at? And I'm not an economist, right? But there was one graph that I saw, and it looked at the price appreciation across Ontario correlated to income mobility. And there is a staggering gap between that, right? So that would indicate that at some point, and we're likely near that point, appreciation is going to outstrip affordability. And that's going to create an issue, right? And then they're like, well, what does that mean? I was like, that's the part that you would need an economist to then explain the system. But this number should cause alarm, and he's like, oh, thanks for being honest with me. And then he went on and on to tell me how he runs one of the biggest farmers of federations in a small town near us. And he has 190 farmers kind of that he reports to, and they want this information. So I'm going to do a presentation to 190 farmers, right? Like
let's get this straight. This is where people need to understand the power of getting connected with people you don't know. You met with a 23-year-old who then connected you with somebody who runs a corporation, who created a relationship, and now you're doing a present. Like, it's that level of humanization. You never know the doors that. And that was an online lead, right? That was like, you got connected to her. That was a shared
lead. It was.
Jesus, right? That was, dude.
It was. Yeah.
Nice.
That's amazing.
I want to unpack a couple of things here, if you guys are cool with that, because there's some things that it's very easy to glance over. One, you read the room. You read that the dad and the daughter. There was some hesitation there, right? You said I just slid the coffee aside. I said, guys, let's just be real, right? Let's put the presentation to the side. Let's just have a conversation, right? And then they asked you a bunch of questions that you were able to answer.
Yep.
As the questions started probably to get harder because they felt more trust. Okay, this guy knows what he's doing. I have more trust in him. He seems legit. You were able, because you are a student of your industry. You are able to share something of significant importance with these people that then cause them to want to introduce you to other people.
Yeah. And I think
so there's not just well, I just want to make sure that everybody understands that, like, as an agent, one of your jobs is to be aware of what's happening in the market so that when people ask questions, you can answer them. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off, Mike.
No, I absolutely agree with you. And there's probably one thing that, had an impact that I likely just kind of breezed over, in that the questions did escalate in difficulty, or whatever we want to call it. And there was a question that he asked, and it was very specific to commercial farms, right? And so he asked the question, and I literally just said, you know what? I don't know. I haven't worked that specific area yet. However, I'm going to go find that answer to you and give it to you in email later on. And then I followed through, right? So like a day later, I consulted with someone who's a little more senior than I am, who I know has done those deals, got the answer, gave it back to him, right? So a lot of people would sit there and maybe try and bluff, right? Mm-hmm. Because you don't want to admit that you don't know something, right? But not knowing and it being able to admit it probably developed that relationship further than if I, blew smoke, in my opinion.
One of my best clients I was holding an open house for another agent. It was way out of my price point. It was $4 million house. So, I'm suited and booted, house is ready, prepped. The listing agent's a rock star. She had the house prepped. All I had to do is go and turn on the lights and not break anything. And these buyers come in. It's super slow. House had been on the market for like 5 months, super slow. And this couple comes in and we start jamming, and they asked me about the floors. Now, I don't know what these floors were, but they were gorgeous. And this is a $4 million house, and I'm sure they're expensive. And I'm like, I know there's some kind of wood, but I have no idea. Let me call the listing. They're like, no, we're not going to buy this house. We don't. I'm like, no, like, you should know, because maybe you want to redo your floors at some point. Like, we already have an agent. I'm like, my job isn't to be your agent. My job is to answer the questions of the home, because that's why the other agent has me here. And if I get something out of it, good for me, but that's a whole different story. I got them the information. They had a couple more questions. I was in conversation with the listing team, got them the answers. They called me back that night. They said, hey, can we interview you? Like, do you have time to deal with this? And I'm sitting there having a beer with my buddies, and I was like, pause, mute. Oh my God, this $4 million client, because of the honesty, right? Like Mike, like you said, you could have said, I have the answer, and made some fluff up, but that's the humility that is lacking in the industry. And the agents that have humility are the ones that succeed, because they realize they don't know everything. Like, I'm sure, Mike, you could probably have figured out Facebook ads, and I'm sure you could have probably figured out the copy, and I'm sure you could have probably figured out the script, and you could have probably figured out the follow-up process. But you're like, well, I'm going to plug into Cody's company. They do this all day long. I'm going to follow what they recommend saying, because then if the results aren't there, I can go back because we followed the structure. But every agent wants to do everything on their own. I don't get it. So I got a question for you. What is your process for taking an online lead and converting them into what I would call like a raving fan or a lifetime client?
Yeah, great question. So the lead part, right? They'd be generated, transferred to me in a live, on a live call. We're going to sit down for a coffee, just to understand more about them, right? Most of the time I tee it up that it's a 15-minute, meet and greet. I always book 45 minutes in my calendar, because they just keep talking, right? Which is a great thing. I love it.
Real quick, when you get a lead, right? Because these are online leads. Yeah. Let's say they tell you they're 6 to 12, 18 months out. Are you still trying to book that live appointment?
Yeah, absolutely. And
even if they tell you they're far out, like, even if they say we're not ready to buy, maybe you ask a ridiculous question like, are you pre-approved? Or, like maybe you ask some ridiculous question like, are you ready to buy tomorrow? I don't know if you would do that. Doesn't sound like you would, but let's say you do ask these questions and they're like, no, we're not looking to buy for a while. Do you still try to meet with them?
Yeah, absolutely. And the reason I do is because I'm not in this for a quick transaction, right? I'm going to have a long-term, sustainable, healthy business. And what that means is, if I can set up people so that next year I have 10 really qualified buyers, There's 10 qualified buyers. I don't have to worry about generating next year last minute, right? I'm always a believer of like staying in flow with people for a long period of time, right? So if they say, I'm not going to buy until next year, and I literally had a call yesterday from someone who said, my work is starting to talk about removing teleworking or whatever, and they're going to make me move to Ottawa at some point, right? I said, yeah, no problem. When is that point? She goes, well, it's going to be in the next year. Great, no problem. What we're going to do is we're going to stay in touch. If I'm in Toronto, we'll grab a quick coffee. If you're in Ottawa, let me know. We'll connect, right? But that's someone that between now or yesterday and next year, 8 months, 14 months, whatever that is, she'll have heard from me at least 100 times between, checking in. Like I just sent a video text this morning, wishing everyone a happy long weekend, right? So that just blasted it out to everyone. I had to throw my phone across the room because it was just like, bzz, bzz, like everyone just been like, oh, thanks. You too. I don't care if you don't buy with me, 2 months from now, half a year from now. I want the long-term sustainable business. And I know that the value of having a huge database of people who have expressed at any point in time buying or selling real estate, that's what I want to build up to. I want to make that database massive so that they'll be calling me up after I send, a deal of the week or a market update or, my fun little email, whatever that is. Something will resonate with them at some point and they'll do business with me because I've stayed in flow for a year.
Yeah, it's the lifetime nurture. It's the interesting thing is like, a lot of the things that we chat about, it's so simple, but it's not easy. Like it's not easy to stay consistent, and consistency, like me and Vic were chatting with this the other day, like consistency can be difficult, but it's like advanced people never stop doing the basics. They like, and I chat with so many agents right now in this market that like are experiencing troubles because of the things they didn't do in, February, the things they didn't do in January. It's like the encouragement I would give any agent listening to this podcast or on iTunes or Spotify is like what you do now and the things you put into your business now, the door knocking, the cold calling, the more open houses is going to have an impact in 3 months. And it's like everyone is so short focused in this industry, and not just in this industry, in every industry. There's tons of salespeople that focus on the now business. It's like, but you need the mixture of both. Now, aside from online leads and it kind of sounds like obviously you have the Sphere stuff. Like what else are you doing that's generating you business today that you think is kind of a non-negotiable for your business that is allowing you to build the business both now and future?
Yeah. So I had this conversation with an agent when I first started, and he's like, so you got to contact your friends, your family, all this. So I was like, no, I'm going to do a cold start. Like starting from zero, nothing. I'm not going to even tell people for the first couple months that I'm in real estate, see how this goes. Probably an insane idea. But it was really interesting because I had to get the basics down. I didn't have an option to lean on 5 to 10 people who are, oh yeah, sure, here, because, you're my son or, and hi mom, whoever that relationship is. I did a cold start, right? But from there, the first deal, who's your lawyer? Oh, it's so-and-so at this place. Great. Reach out to them. Hey, we just did a deal together. Love to go for lunch. Let's connect, right? And since that first connection, at least once a month, I've gone for a coffee or a lunch or a beer, whatever that might be, with that person. Who's your mortgage broker? This person. Great. I'm going to reach out to them. And then it was funny because the more I met non-immediate connection people, I started getting more people in my circle going, oh, I didn't even know you were doing this. How long were you? Like, oh, I've been doing it this long. Like, oh, we've been thinking about selling. We saw you on social or whatever that might be. And then it just kind of like really organically grew rather than me being like, I'm in the industry. You should sell or buy with me. And, let's do it right now. So when you think about basics, like they're often there, right? But people don't necessarily leverage it right away. If you make a new connection through a deal, even to, a lawyer, accountant, whatever that is, go meet them face to face. Don't call them, don't email them, meet them face to face, right? And I think, especially in today's age where attention is so limited, right? Like you have people who can barely sit through a 6-second TikTok video, right? Go and meet people face to face and have something engaging to say. And most of the time, that's something engaging is getting that person to talk about themselves.
Right.
It's so funny. My old business partner, prior to us rebranding to Sheridan Street, we chatted about this all the time. And I look back at when I got started in the industry, when I got started in the agency world back in 2018. One of the things he said to me, he's like, hey, if you really want to make a name for yourself in this community, he's like, one of the best things you can do is network your ass off. And I'm like, oh, what does that mean? He's like, take coffee meetings with every single person and try to get in front of every single person in your community. I think that's kind of what you're saying there, where it's like exactly. Those strategic partnerships are created through your ability, like joining a local chamber. Like I did that when I was in Peterborough. That's how a business got started. I joined a local chamber. I volunteered my time. I did as many coffee meetings as I could, so people knew us as the go-to Peterborough marketing agency. Obviously, we did ads and we did all these other things, but like when we were Studio PTBO, we practiced that locally. And I think that same thing applies to any real estate agent in their local market. It's like you need to get involved in your community. You need to be almost seen as the mayor of Ottawa, or seen as the mayor of Peterborough, or seen as the mayor of Windsor, Ontario, or seen as the mayor of Bakersfield, California.
Whoa.
Yeah, throwing that out there for you. You need to be seen as the mayor of somewhere. So how do you approach, and I want to give somebody tactical ways on how to even reach out to them. So you say get to them face to face, but what do you say to get those meetings? Like what is your language patterns around? Because a lot of people, like a lot of agents are like, I don't want to do that. That feels really weird. How do you ask for a coffee meeting? How do you ask for somebody's time that might be busy?
Yeah. So I guess one of the things is like, I don't think saying anything to anyone is weird. I'll walk up to pretty much anyone and say whatever's on my mind. So I'm going to put a disclaimer in front of this, and I hope that it doesn't sound like it comes like that it's easy, because it's not for some people, right? But if you have a name, right, and it's on the buyer representation agreement, it's on a listing agreement, it's on an APS, you have a name, you have a number, you have an email, you also already have a reason to contact them. You're doing business with them. You are involved in a transaction with them. So I just call them and say, hey, it's Mike. We're on, 123 Main Street transaction together. We'd love to get a couple minutes of your time. Just meet face to face. I'll swing by with a coffee, so you don't even have to move. 5-10 minutes, you can give me the boot, no problem. Oh, sure. Come by, whatever. Does that work for you? Yep. Great. Bye. And I don't want that to sound super easy, but there's already very, I'd say, important reason to go and reach out to that person. Right. So I would just call them up. That is almost what I say. Like I just kind of wing it. But, just understanding that they are busy. So make it more convenient for them. They don't have to leave their office. Or if they work remote, what's the closest Starbucks to you, or whatever that might look like. And just ask for it. And that's one thing that maybe comes easy for me is I'll ask for pretty much anything. Like, I've gone in to buy like new shoulder pads for hockey, and they're like, oh, these are $250. Be like, is that the best you could do for me? And they're like, what? And I was like, is there any like deal you can give me? Is there a sale coming up? And they're like, well, no, that doesn't happen like this.
Cody, I think Mike's more Indian than you, and you hang around a lot of Indians, and I think Mike's a little bit more Indian Colombian.
I mean, my grandmother, who just passed away actually, came as an immigrant from Lebanon with like nothing, and that was her style, right? She'd just be like, if it's $250 and you can sell it to me for $245, I'm ahead. You know what I mean? Even though they probably have a huge margin on it.
So, like when people talk about networking, the whole purpose of going out to network is the coffee date afterwards. Like going out to the networking event is great, but I talk to agents and they're like, oh, we do a lot of networking. I'm like, okay, how many names and numbers did you get? Like, well, we gave our card out to a lot of people. And I'm like, and how many of those people have ever called you? They're like, none. And how many of the people did you get a card from that you called? They're like, none. I'm like, so why are you wasting your life? Like, if you don't have a plan, right? And that's what happens with a lot of agents is they don't have a plan before they start doing the activity. So it's like, okay, I'm going to buy leads. Great. That's a great idea. What's your plan? I don't know. Well, then why are you buying leads? I don't know. What are you going to do with the open house? I don't know. Are you going to follow up with these people? Yeah. When? I don't know. Okay. So why are you doing open houses? You're just waiting for somebody to bring a contract over and be like, hey, here you go, Mike. Here you go, Cody. Like, I'm ready to buy. Like, it doesn't exist.
And I think And I think that falls down to people's systems, right? If you don't have a system, you're going to fail,
Mm.
right? And, speaking specifically to the networking, and again, because systems are so ingrained in how I think, maybe so if I meet someone at a networking event and I get their card, right? Like I literally have a card right here and I know what I need to do today for it. I'm going to send them in the first week, I'm going to send them a thank you card. It like handwritten. Great meeting you. Thanks for connecting. Looking forward to, seeing you next time. 1 week later, I'll try and give them a call. 1 week after that, I'll try and give them a call. And it was in a book and it was like the 8 in 8, right? So the first touch point is the card. I'll call them for the next 6 weeks, and then I'll call them and try to get a lunch or a coffee. But along the way, I've been trying to give them value, like that guy specifically. I know that there's a change happening at the government department that he's in. So I called him yesterday and was like, hey, I saw everything settled out. That's pretty cool. What's the impact on you? And he's like, oh, blah, blah, blah. Talked about his job. Okay, cool. See you later. That was it, right? Have a system, which if you continually work it, it just becomes so ingrained that you just know, and that's going to increase your levels of success.
I know we got to wrap up here real quick. But here's what people, so many agents, because they don't have a system, the only thing they know is there's a nail in front of me. I'm the hammer. I got to try to drive it into the wood. And you're always like, agents call and they're like, well, what do I say? I'm like, just have a conversation, right? Ask them about them, because you can't not call somebody, especially like a client, for 3 years and be like, hey, can I get a referral? It's weird. Like, don't make sales weird. Just have a couple of questions you're going to ask these people, and they will then reciprocate and ask you back like, oh, well, what's going on in your life, Mike? And they know you're a realtor. So they're going to ask about the market, and it just naturally flows.
Exactly.
What I love the most about this is obviously the relationship, because you share the same ethos to business and life that we share, where it's like, everyone's a future client. The other thing I love is the fact that you're doing online lead generation, but it's not just your only source. Like, you're doing other things, like you're thinking about strategic partnerships, like you're doing the now business. And it's like, we try to compartmentalize everything. We try to teach our agents like, hey, like, look, there's now business, which is activity-based business. There's referral and strategic partnership business, and there's pipeline business. And the mixture of all three is the thing that actually helps you create scale, actually creates longevity in your business. Like, literally signed an agent that I've been speaking with for the last 3 years, like has seen the trajectory of, like, from the time we were a content marketing agency to what we built now today. It's like, I think thinking long-term, like, I think anyone listening back to this podcast, thinking long-term with your business and not thinking about the next 90 days, but thinking about what does the next 5 years look like, or the next 10 years. When you can go out further, you make better decisions. So Mike, I just want to say thank you from the bottom of my heart for chatting with us just about your ethos, about relationships and networking. If somebody were to want to reach out to you, maybe it's an agent referral, maybe they want to learn more about what you're doing in the Ottawa market, where's the best place that we can direct them? Because we know, also, if you can throw out your Instagram handle, it'd be amazing as well, because I know that you're producing a ton of content there.
Yeah. So like my Instagram handle is just at Mikey.Ouellette. Just going to put it in the chat there. So if you put it out, and then my email directly is just mike@themikeouellette.com. Super vain. Love it. But it's I like, in my opinion, I am the Mike Ouellette. And if there's any other Mike Ouellette out there that has something to say, we can have a Mike Ouellette off,
Well, the real Mike Ouellette, please stand up, is the literally that should be the intro to the podcast. But Mike, I want to say thank you, and I want to say thank you for tuning into another episode of the Our Agent Podcast, the #1 real estate podcast in the world. Hope you got a ton of value today. We'll see you soon.